The BCPA was actually created out of all the social unrest that we had back in 2020. And after the deaths of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, we really then decided we really have to focus and create a community for Black-owned tech partners.
I was tired of being by myself at industry events. I'd go to these great events where people are talking about the size of the opportunities in tech, and I'd look around and there were no other Black people in the room.
And we had a Microsoft advocate, Jasson, who said, look, with all the social unrest going on, what are you guys going to do about it? So the three of us, along with Justin's big push, he kind of nudged us, decided that we needed to scale up the Black tech community.
We've had the benefit of co-designing a solution with Microsoft, and so we built BCPA around three pillars: access to education, access to capital, and access to opportunities.
There's too many times where people say, well, I tried giving an opportunity to a Black-owned tech firm, they weren't ready. We're building programs so that the Black tech owners and their organizations are ready.
We are hyper-focused on helping at least 100 Black-owned tech companies achieve at least $100 million in net new revenue, create at least 800 new tech jobs in our community. We want to perform at least 1,000 digital transformation projects for community-based organizations.
We're not just another nonprofit. We're here to help you grow your business, and that includes lead flow, giving you leads, specific leads, what we call your ICP, your ideal client profile.
When people have approached us looking for partners in specific geographies, we're able to turn around and give them a Black-owned firm with a specific technology skill set in a matter of minutes.
We want to create sustainable tech companies, right, that are not just here for today, but tomorrow.
Within our community, million-dollar businesses are rare. It's not something that happens with frequency. We believe that our model, executed correctly, in tandem with some other programs, can achieve those results for partners.
66% of the participants already had a 25% increase in revenue. 100% of those respondents already have gotten new contracts as well. And about 2/3 of those participants have also added new employees to date.
The thing that has been truly special for me about this is every meeting that I have that's BCP related, I will find an opportunity to do business for someone, or I'll find a new partner that I can collaborate with that'll help grow my business and theirs.
Network, network, network. The only way we're going to grow our business at the end of the day is by helping each other.
There are moments of magic that are created by engaging within our community.
Take pride in helping each other for nothing in return. And if we all have that same mentality, we will all do well. We will all rise up. And at the end of the day, our whole community will be grateful and thankful for that. Well, hello, everybody. Fantastic to be able to have you here joining us. We are thrilled to continue our Power Forum series. And today you're in for a great treat. We have our friend Jasson Walker, the founder and CEO of cFocus Software, located in Greater Maryland, DMV. And he's also a Microsoft Gold Certified Partner, an AWS Technology Partner, a ServiceNow Partner, and they have incredible, significant capabilities to support the government cloud initiatives. You're going to be inspired by the story of someone who started from literally zero to owning a federal government contracting company that does over $10 million in annual revenue. Jasson is an incredible thought leader. You'll instantly be connected with him. You'll know why he has had incredible success. Thank you, Jasson, for joining us to be able to share on the topic of navigating the federal space. Jasson, good to have you on. All right, we'll get him up in a second here. We're going to have a moment to hear from Jasson. We're going to have some time for Q&A, and then we're going to break out into rooms where we can network and even specifically ask Jasson more questions about cFocus software and the success he's had. Let's see here. Trying to make sure he's up. He is here, everybody.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I think we're live now, and want to welcome everybody to the April BCPA Power Forum. My name is Jasson Walker. I am pleased, very pleased to be with all of you right now. I am going to make a presentation today about navigating the federal space. And so I have some slides prepared. I will share my screen so that we can get this presentation started. So bear with me. All right, there we go. All right. So we're going to present today navigating the federal space. So let's get this party started. All right, so here's an agenda for the presentation today. I'm going to make a quick introduction. I'm going to introduce myself. I'm going to introduce my company. Why am I doing this presentation to all of you? I hope to answer that question with the introduction. Then we're going to have two separate sections for this presentation. The first section is, how does the government buy products and services? We need to understand the federal government procurement process, and I'm going to break down some of the high-level detail on that process. Now, once we understand what that government process is, then we need to turn our attention to, how do I win government contracts? Because there is a set of processes and procedures and best practices for you to actually go after and win federal government contracts. So we're going to talk about that. And then we're also going to have time at the end for Q&A. Now, before we actually get started with the introduction, I'd like to make my presentations as interactive as I possibly can. And so what I'd like to do is I'd like to have a poll. We prepared a poll so that we can kind of get some feedback from the audience. Would love to get an understanding of how many of you who are listening have actually done some federal contracting before. If you've done no federal government contracts, that's perfectly fine. If you've been a subcontractor instead of a prime contractor, that's perfectly fine. I think we have that poll up right now. Victor, I don't know if we can kind of get that up on the screen. All right, I think we have that up on screen now. So let's see if there's anybody out here who has never had any federal government contracts. Perfectly fine. You're in the right place for you to learn how to start winning some. If you've been a subcontractor, if you've been a prime contractor, or if you're an OG, like you've won multiple federal government contracts. So let's see what we have here. So we have some results coming in. Looks like the vast majority have not had any federal government contracts, which is perfectly fine, like I said. I have a couple of people who've been a subcontractor. That's really good. You're on the right track. We'll give you all maybe another minute or two. And I see a couple of comments as well. One person saying subcontracting, love it. Another person said that they worked as a government contractor, but not with his own company. Okay, that's perfectly fine. All right, looks like looks like most of the audience is either in the, pretty much all of the audience is either in the no federal government contracts or has been a subcontractor. So what I'll do, thanks for that feedback. That's very helpful. So what I'll do during the presentation is I'll make sure that I focus on how do you get that first government contract as a prime contractor, because that's where we want to be. We don't want to be subcontractors. We want to be prime contractors as much as we possibly can. And I'll explain why as we go through this. All right, so let's get started with this presentation. So who am I? So my name is Jasson Walker. Pleased to meet all of you. I have a company called cFocus Software Incorporated. I started cFocus Software in 2006. So it's been 16 plus years now that we've done this type of work. We've done a lot of different services at a lot of different federal government agencies. We are 100% focused on federal government work. So all of the work we've ever done has been on behalf and at the pleasure of the federal government. So we've worked with multiple federal government agencies, both on the DoD side and on the civilian side. We have a top secret facility clearance. Don't tell anybody, that's a secret. I'm not actually supposed to say that, but we're amongst family, so I can share. And not only have we done a lot of work with federal government agencies, but we're actually a Microsoft Gold partner. So we've always considered Microsoft one of our premier partnerships. And we've actually, within BCPA, we've actually established a lot of groundwork for us to collaborate with Microsoft to earn federal government contracts for BCPA members. So one of the integrations that we have with Microsoft is we have a software platform that we have developed called ATO as a service. So long story short, federal government agencies need to go through a very intense cybersecurity compliance process. And it's totally manual right now. They literally have to do 1,000-page documents, very complex spreadsheets. It's all done by hand. It's all done by very expensive consultants. And so we developed ATO as a service to automate and expedite that process. And we did it through all of the expertise that we've gained over the past 15 years. We productized all of that expertise into ATO as a service. And we actually have it listed in the Microsoft Azure Marketplace, among other places. And we've been very fortunate. We sold a couple of licenses to a couple of federal government agencies. We've also sold it to some cloud providers so that if you are interested in FedRAMP, I don't know if any of you have heard of FedRAMP or wanted to get more information about FedRAMP. We actually have a lot of expertise when it comes to FedRAMP, and ATO as a service is a platform that automates the FedRAMP process as well. So that's my background. And, like I said, we've done this for 15 years. We've done over $30+ million in federal government business over the past 15 years. I personally have kind of been at the forefront of a lot of initiatives with cybersecurity and with automation for cybersecurity with the federal government. And so I want to take some of those lessons learned that I've gained over the 15 years and give you some shortcuts, some cheat codes in how to win your first federal government contract. So the first question is this: how does the government buy products and services? So let's explore the federal government procurement process. So in just your normal everyday dealings with federal government or even local or state government, I'm sure you all know the federal government in general is slow, super duper slow. The government procurement process typically happens over the course of usually 12 to 24 months. the process is broken out into several phases. This is a very, very simplified representation of what the federal government procurement process is. And so we'll kind of go through each of these steps so that you understand what's going on, and then you understand what your role would be in each of these different steps. So there's three basic steps. There's the pre-award, the award, and the post-award steps of the process. Now, getting a federal government contract, they call it getting a contract award. And so pre-award is when the government needs to define exactly what it is that they want a contractor to do. And so the apparatus for these government contracts, there's a contracting office. Each government agency has one or more contracting offices. There are personnel that are dedicated to the contracting process. And so the pre-award, award, and post-award steps are all managed by these federal government contractors and the other personnel that are involved in the contracting office. And so during pre-award, the contracting office will define exactly what it is that the government needs to buy. What are the products and services that they need to buy? What is the amount? What are the details of the purchase that the government needs to make? Now, the government contracting office is one entity that's involved, and then the second entity that's involved is the program office. So what is the program office? So the contracting office, they are dedicated to fulfilling this procurement, all of the steps that have to be performed in order for the government to buy products and services. The contracting office executes all of those activities, and they do so on behalf of the programming office. The programming office, they're the ones who actually need to utilize whatever products or services. So let's say, for example, we're talking about a help desk contract. Let's say we're talking about a help desk contract at US Army, which is one of our customers. So the programming office, they are the folks who actually need the help desk support. They are the people who need the personnel who will take all of the help desk calls, do all of the resolution, do the actual work of the contract. That is the programming office. They are the customer when it comes to a government contract. The contracting office, they are the folks dedicated to actually executing the procurement. They're the ones who go through the pre-award, award, and the post-award process to ensure that the government procures services legally and within the best interest of the federal government. So during pre-award, the contracting office will define the requirements. So they'll say, we need help desk services. We need it 24/7, or we need it for 40 hours a week. They will tell you details of that help desk. What are the types of services that need to be performed as part of the help desk, whether it's first call resolution, if there's escalation, so on and so forth. All of those details is compiled during the pre-award and the requirements definition. And then what happens after that is the government will put out a request for proposals, an RFP. And so when the government puts out a request for proposals, that is when you as a contractor, you have the opportunity to submit your bid, submit your proposal for that contract. And so that is when you need to sharpen your pencils, and you need to utilize the relationships that you have. You need to utilize your proposal development skills, and you need to actually write a proposal and submit a proposal so that the government can evaluate your proposal to see if you will be the company that gets the award. Now, the award process is when the government actually makes an award. So the government receives all of the proposals. The government does an evaluation process, which is very clearly spelled out. So there shouldn't be any surprises. There shouldn't be any shenanigans that occurs during the evaluation process, because everyone should be aware of what the process is. And once the government makes a decision that's in the best interest of the government, they make a contract award. And so then that award goes to whatever proposal or whatever company they decide has offered something that's in the best interest of the government. So that's the award phase. The post-award phase is when the contractor actually executes. That's when you hire your folks, you work the contract, and then as you work the contract, all of the performance monitoring and all of the reporting and all of the incident response, incident management activities, that's when you perform on the contract, and you have to just continuously monitor and continuously ensure that you're delivering the services that was promised in the proposal. So on a high level, that is what the government procurement cycle is. And there are many opportunities within that cycle for you as a contractor, you as a potential contractor, to show value to the government and to hopefully steer the government toward picking you as the awardee. Now let's talk about contract vehicles. So that procurement process that I just went through, that is a generalized process. So pretty much all government agencies go through some form of that procurement cycle. But in order for you to actually bid on one of those contract opportunities, in order for you to receive that request for proposal, you need to have access to what are considered contract vehicles. So what is a contract vehicle? Basically, a contract vehicle is the avenue by which the government releases requests for proposals. And so there are all different types of contract vehicles. So there are GWACs. GWACs is a government-wide acquisition contract. So there are several GWACs that are available. GSA, the General Services Administration, they are the agency within the government that puts out a lot of different GWACs. On the next slide, I listed a few of those contract vehicles. So GSA MAS, the GSA Multiple Award Schedule, is one contract vehicle. They literally, so hundreds of government agencies release hundreds of opportunities on the GSA MAS contract vehicle on a daily basis. If you are on that vehicle, if you have access to the request for proposals on that vehicle, you will constantly get notifications of new contract opportunities that have come out on that vehicle. STARS 3. STARS 3 is another GSA contract vehicle, which is set aside specifically for contractors that have a 8A designation and 8A certification, which we previously had that. We actually graduated from the 8A program back in 2018. So it's been several years now. Man, it's been like 4 years. And that was a sad day when we graduated from the 8A program. The 8A program is very, very helpful to getting access to contract opportunities that you have an opportunity to win. So there's other kinds, I'll go back to the previous slide. There's other kinds of contract vehicles as well. BPAs are blanket purchase agreements. So agencies can issue blanket purchase agreements, which basically means they will select a very small number of contractors that they will release those requests for proposals to. So instead of releasing it to the whole world so that any government contractor can bid on a RFP, they want to have a very small list of companies that they want to accept bids from. So they would release a BPA. Talking about contract vehicles. All right. So let's move on. So you are a government contractor. You understand the government procurement process. You understand there is a contracting office. They are in charge of the actual procurement. They're in charge of releasing the RFP, getting all of the proposals back, ensuring that there is fair competition, making the award. That is what the contracting office does. You're aware of that. You're aware of the programming office, who are the actual customers on behalf that the work is being done. And they're the ones actually performing the oversight and the evaluation on a daily basis when you're performing the contract. You understand that in order to get those RFPs, you have to have access to those RFPs through multiple contract vehicles, right? Now, so you know all of that. How do you actually win? How do you position your company to win those government contracts? How do you win your very first federal government contract? The very first thing that you should be doing, and this is going to sound different from other people who you may speak to, and I'm going to tell y'all straight up. I mean, I was given very bad advice when I first started in this game. I was told, go get your 8A certification immediately. I was told that you should just go bid on stuff. I mean, granted, it is possible to just go out there and just bid on stuff and go get your 8A certification and get success that way. But having done this for 15 years, I'm going to tell y'all the best way that I know how to do this. So Nyasha asked the question, should a small organization looking to do business wait to get an 8A first? Absolutely, they should. Here is the criteria. If you ask me, the criteria by which you should decide that you can get that you're ready for an 8A certification, there's two criteria. I graduated from the 8A program already, so I'm telling you based on experience. There's two criteria that you need to assess whether or not you're ready for the 8A program. Criteria number one, do you have relationships? Do you have the requisite relationships with one or more federal government agencies that will give you direct awards? Now, the 8A program is a very special program because you are a minority company and the government sets aside a whole list of contract opportunities just for you as a minority company. And about 90%, I think over 90% of all contracts awarded through the 8A program, they are awarded on a sole source basis. How do you get those sole source contracts? You get them because people know you and people want to do business with you because you have relationships with the programming office folks, the folks who actually will be your customer, and or you have relationships with contracting office people who actually manage the procurement process. That is the first criteria, that you actually have real relationships to get one or more government contracts, and that you actually have a process for nurturing those relationships and ensuring that those relationships result in contracts. That's the first criteria. The second criteria is about being able to write proposals. Do you have the capability within your business, either you yourself, your business partner, or some kick-ass people that you can hire and that will be loyal to you? Do you have the ability to generate proposals? If you have the ability to generate proposals and actually respond to those RFPs, and you have a process in place in order for you to do that, that is the other criteria that you need to meet before you go after the 8A program and be successful. That is basically, the difference. You can do it and you can not really know exactly how to do it and what you're doing and everything, but I'm telling you, those are the two criteria that you want to have before you go after the 8A program. The 8A program is a 9-year program. 9 years goes by like that. It goes by so quickly, and you don't want to spend the majority of your time in the program still trying to figure out how do you win your first government contract. So that's my answer to that question. Now, getting back to how you actually win government contracts, which this is actually a good dovetail. The number one thing you need to do, in my opinion, is you need to know your capabilities. You need to know what you actually do. Government contracts are all about the government having the best value for whatever service they need. So you, as a contractor, you need to actually be able to offer the government best value. You can't offer the government best value if you're responding to any and every opportunity that comes out and you have no relationships there, you don't have any proposal writing capability. You actually need to hone in on exactly what it is that your company does better than every other company that's out there. What does your company do? What expertise do you have? What expertise does your staff have? What expertise does your partners have that are better than everybody else that you know? What processes do you have that are better than everybody else? That is the key step that you need to hone in on. And once you understand that, once you understand what your capabilities are and how you distinguish yourself, that is the foundation from which all of the other activities that you perform as a contractor will flourish with. Because without that baseline capability, that's the leg that everything else stands on. The next thing you need in order for you to win government contracts is relationships. Relationships. Not only having relationships, but actually being able to utilize those relationships and translate those relationships into actual work. Do you know people? Do people know you? Do people trust you? Do you have work relationships in the past that you can now utilize in order for you to win government contracts? One of my first contracts that I won, guess how I won that contract? I won it through a relationship. I used to be co-workers with a gentleman who later moved on to a government agency, and we kept in touch. I told him about my business. I told him the type of work that we were doing, and he let me know, hey, we have this opportunity for some work that we need to have done. I know your work. I know you are a very diligent, hardworking person. And they gave me the contract. I mean, it was literally a sole source award based on a relationship that I had that gave me my first contract within federal government. You can do the exact same thing. There's people in your past that you've done work with that respect you and that they know the kind of work that you are capable of doing. Call on those old relationships. Call on all of those people that you previously worked with. Check them out on LinkedIn. See what they're doing now. A lot of people in your past have moved up the ladder and are in positions of authority and decision-making capacity that, you know, they can now be your resources in order for you to win your first government contract. So utilize those relationships, both past, present, and future. And again, proposals. So the art of writing a proposal is probably the biggest factor when it comes to equalizing the playing field among all of the different contractors that are out there. My company and me personally, we've never really been relationship driven. We've always been driven by the fact that we can write extremely effective proposals, that we can convince the government that we're able to deliver the services that they need and that we can do so at the lowest risk. You'll see on my next slide that the other factor is about risk. So I'll talk about risk and I'll talk about proposals at the same time. So one thing you need to understand about federal government is that everything is always framed in the perspective of risk. Risk management and minimizing the risk that you are going to expose the government to is one of the primary gambits that you need to understand about doing federal government contracting. The reason why the government always wants to go with large businesses is because large business usually offers the lowest amount of risk. And so you need to be able, as a small business, convince the government that you are a low risk option as well. And when you're competing with other small businesses, you need to convince the government that you are the lowest risk option among all of those small businesses that are competing for the opportunity. And so how do you do that? You do that by writing a really, really good proposal. You do that by understanding what the government actually wants to hear in the proposal. If you've never had a phone call with anyone, either at the agency or anyone who has previously done work at the agency, and you're totally writing a proposal blind without any knowledge or any insight into what's actually going on, what tools they're actually using, what are their actual pain points. If you don't have that insight, you're probably not going to win writing that proposal. You need to be in touch with people who are actually doing the work right now, people who have done the work in the past. You need to be in touch with the vendors that are performing work for that agency right now. You need to get as much insight about a contract opportunity as you possibly can. And that is what gives you the edge in the proposal writing process. And then you take that information and you actually have to present it in a way that's digestible to the government. All right, so we have another question here. All right. Have heard the term mentor protege. Can you give some insight and if this is something new contractors should look at? Sure, absolutely. So mentorship is always one of the shortcuts for getting ahead on anything in life, really. And the same goes for federal government contracting. If you have a large business that is willing to make the investment in you as a small business and establish a mentor protege relationship, that is always a way for you to kind of have a shortcut for you to win new business. So I would definitely recommend it. We tried, there have been no less than 3 or 4 different attempts that we had to have a mentor company. Honestly, I'm not sure exactly why we were never able to consummate a mentor protege relationship and actually enjoy all of the benefits that usually come with that. Things kind of happen. It's always a tricky situation to try to convince a large business to provide resources and to spend money on you as a small business. There definitely needs to be a specific reason that they're targeting you. There definitely needs to be some value that you offer this large business. That is the only reason. There is no free lunches in federal government contracting. No one is going to give you a contract just because they like you. They're going to give it to you because there's some value that you're offering to them in return. So I would definitely recommend that if you have the opportunity to cultivate a relationship with a large business and establish a mentor protege program, and they're willing to actually make a real investment and spend money on you as a small business in return for whatever access you're giving them, that I would 100% be for that. It's not necessary for you to have success, but it's certainly helpful. All right. So we talked about proposals. We talked about risk. I want to kind of leave it here. I know I've been talking in generalities. I would like to give folks the opportunity to ask questions if they have any. So we can go to the Q&A session. And if anyone wants to leave some questions in the chat, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Let's see here. All right. So we have a couple of questions coming in. Okay, first question. How long does the contract process take? It varies from contract opportunity to contract opportunity. I've seen some be as quick. If you get a sole source award, it can be as quick as a month or two. And I've seen some opportunities take a year or two. So it all kind of depends on what's the size of the contract. Obviously, if it's a small dollar amount and it is very little competition, if it's, like a $50,000 contract and there's only one or two people competing, or if there's no competition and it's a sole source award, that can be executed fairly quickly within a month, because there's always the legal and the kind of just basic paperwork that happens even on a small transaction. But I've seen literally contracts take 2+ years to be awarded as well. So it kind of varies based on size and scope, competition, and agency. All right. Can you describe the difference between an NDA teaming agreement and subcontractor agreement and how to use each in the BD process? Very good question. All right. NDA is a non-disclosure agreement. That is just an agreement that whatever proprietary information that may be disclosed within any communication between your company and another company, that you don't utilize that proprietary information other than for whatever it is that you're discussing. That's an NDA. Teaming agreement is when you and another organization decide to create a team to go after a contract opportunity, because the combined capabilities of the team gives you a better chance and lowers the risk for the government to actually win that contract award. So that's a teaming agreement. Subcontractor agreement is what will supersede both of those previous agreements. Now, a subcontractor agreement basically means there is another company that won a contract and they are now prepared to offer you a piece of the action. So you're going to be able to execute some of that work on behalf of the prime contractor. So they will offer you a subcontract agreement for exactly what piece of the action you're going to get on this contract award. And so usually the NDA comes first, the teaming agreement comes second, and then if you're lucky enough to get the award, the subcontractor agreement comes last. Okay. As a provider, did your organization also achieve a FedRAMP 3 PAO? Good question. We are not a FedRAMP 3 PAO. What we are is we are an organization that would help a cloud service provider prepare their SSP. And then after we're done with our part, so ATO as a service will help automate that development of the system security plan, the SSP. And then after that is done, then that cloud service provider would go to a 3PAO to get that SSP assessed. So in order for you to avoid that conflict of interest, you can't have the same company create the SSP or help the cloud service provider create the SSP and then also do the assessment. So we're actually before that process that the 3PAO will perform. Should I keep going? I can keep going. I can go all day, guys. So until you guys tell me to stop, I'm going to keep going. All right. Next question. All right. For the second criteria of being successful with 8A, you mentioned we can hire someone who has the ability to generate good proposals that is loyal. What are the potential risks with hiring someone? All right. You cannot outsource your secret sauce. If you are Coca-Cola and you have someone else develop that secret formula for Coke, that person can walk out that door anytime they want and your business is done. If you are the principal in your company, you need to be able to go out and generate that business, however which way that business should be generated. If it's through the relationships you have, if it's through the proposals that you develop. Now, sure, if you have people that helps you perform the actual activities that are part of a proposal, that is always helpful. You always want to be able to delegate. I haven't even gotten into that. I haven't even gotten into repeatable processes and replaceable people. Maybe next time we can talk about that. But it's always good to have people who can participate in the proposal process and that you can delegate specific activities to. But when it comes to the win themes, when it comes to the actual messaging that creates the environment where the government says, yes, we want to award a contract to this company, you as the principal need to own that process. You cannot outsource that to another person, because that person can always walk out the door, and so does all your business. Do you have any resources or recommendations for learning how to write a proper proposal? Yeah, so there are several best practices that are out there. The process that I kind of got started with is called Shipley. I'll put that in the chat. Shipley was the organization that, Shipley is so complex. I will warn you all right now that Shipley has a very complex process that is really designed for $50, $100 million companies. You don't need to execute all of the steps. They literally break down the proposal development process into like 50 steps. So you don't need to go down to that level of granularity, but you can certainly glean a lot from the way that they break down the process, specifically when it comes to the pre-award activities. A lot of the groundwork has to come before the RFP is released, and they lay that out very, very nicely. Let's see. Have you used simplified acquisitions as a strategy to get prime contracts? So simplified acquisitions are for opportunities for contracts that are $25,000 or less, I think, if I'm not mistaken. We usually go after big contracts, 15, 20, 15 million, 20 million, 8 million, 30 million, which simplified acquisitions are not applicable for large contract opportunities like that. So honestly, I'm not very well versed on simplified acquisitions. We've never really had that opportunity to go after. I wish we can just very simply get some work, but we always have to kind of go through the proposal process. Did you start off as a subcontractor? What would your advice be for a current subcontractor for going after prime contracts? Yes. So we did start off as a subcontractor, and that is always the best way for you to kind of build out your back office and for you to hone in on what your capabilities are prior to you going out there and, being the contractor of record for a government contract. When it comes to getting prime contracts, if you are a subcontractor and you want to go after prime contracts, look for prime contracts that are very, very, very small. 1 person, 2 people. Normally, the bigger prime contractors are not even looking at opportunities where there's only 1 person or 2 people. But it's the perfect opportunity if you have never done a prime contract before to go after something like that, because it's low risk for the government. The government will have a much broader scope of companies that they would be willing to make an award to, because it's a small contract. And then you have less competition because companies like me that's been doing this for a long time, we're not even looking at 1 or 2 people opportunities. Minimum, we want to see opportunities where we can get 10, 15, 30 people. All right. We are at the point where we're ready to break out for networking. And please feel free. I'll be hanging out. I'll be at a table. I may do a little musical chairs a little bit so I can meet some more folks. Would love to continue answering questions. and we'll see you at the networking session. All right, folks. Peace.